to be shot and villainized. That is a story of the Black woman. Black women can't be victims. They just can't.
Based on my experience of just like 6 months of all of a sudden being, to me, extremely online. Apparently I don't count, but I'm like, this is way more than I've ever been online. I think people, to be honest, if you say something to somebody in the way that white middle-class men assert things to people, I said what I said. And you're like, John, I know you're lying. Because I know you and I know you're lying. Your face is a little red. And the same way people believe people on social media. They're like, well, Stephanie told me 10 facts. I don't know if she made them up, but she asserted them and she said whatever, and I believe her. And that I find to be like really frightening. And the only way people don't believe you is when they didn't believe you to begin with. They're like, I don't agree with this person. And that's what I think is going on, is people's lack of reading comprehension mixed with this parasocial relationship with someone on the internet that they don't know, but they believe because that person is basically verifying everything that they personally believe anyway.
So there's interesting research around that. It comes out of like research about capital punishment. And so when people are pro capital, and I wish I recall the name of the study, but essentially, researchers looked into like, why are people so staunchly pro like capital punishment? Mm-hmm. And what they found was that when people, like you said, when people come in with these ideas around the death penalty, actually the more information that you provide them with, the number of innocent people who are on death row, et cetera, the number of people who've been exonerated, it actually causes them to double down. So it has like a psychological term that I'm blanking on. But yeah, so like research finds when people are really committed to an idea, actually providing them with evidence, facts, statistics works in reverse. Evidence, statistics only works when people come in open-minded. Yeah. And you can kind of sway them. When someone already has made up their mind, it actually makes them become more extreme about whatever belief that they have. And so it's interesting to see it play out this way on social media. Part of the reason I'm so interested in like the Black manosphere is because I think the way in which we were behind on research about incels until it was like too far along, I think we're way too far behind on what's happening with like the Black manosphere, and cases like this bring it to the forefront. But I actually think that there's like a lot of stuff happening in these like message boards, chat rooms, Twitches, that we as Black women are like really behind the ball up on. I don't think we have even tip of the iceberg, I think, is where we're at on understanding the hatred that some folks have towards Black women.
I thought this was like a really good, where are you? There you are. Quote that I pulled from this article from NBC News that says, whatever can garner the most controversy can go the most viral. It's profitable because being anti-Black women, using Black women as scapegoats or villains works for a variety of audiences, white audiences, Black men audiences, and most unfortunately, in spaces where Black women use misogynoir to distance themselves from the negative implications of being associated with other Black women. That's how the manosphere thrives, and Kevin Samuel, hope his soul is not resting, that's how he thrived. He was like, if I put like single mother thinks she deserves a millionaire in the title, they're already riled up. They're angry. They're like, how dare that single mother ask for anything? She's a widow, to hell with her. Like they know. He knew, like, I don't think he believed any of that.
To the previous point from that quote, it's so interesting to me, like when we're talking about blogs, one of the blogs that has been really surprising to me, the Shade Room. The Shade Room was very shady. So I was really, really disappointed in. I have to give them their props. They do a really good job of like not appearing biased on the surface. So if you don't know enough about the case, like if you're not following the case and you're not seeing all the important updates and you're just looking at the Shade Room, it appears that it's objective. But when you're actually following the case and you know what actually happened that day in court and you know what the big revelations were, etc., and then you compare that to what the Shade Room is posting, then and you're more critical, then it becomes like, this isn't as objective as it appears. So they're slick.
We'll go first.
Oh, no, I was saying they're slick.
They are, because I think what they have realized is people don't want to watch the news, except for the Fox News people, because people now, they're not interested in the news. Hasn't kept up with digital, in my opinion, but also so many things have come out where people are like, the news is biased, because there is always a slant. So now people think like, oh, these blogs, they have nothing to like get out of being biased. I'm like, they have everything to get out of being biased, because the blog only survives off of ad clicks. So I think it's really interesting that so many people, their source of news is the shade room. And I'm like, that's frightening.
Very frightening. And people, because they're so slick about it, like people feel like they're getting an objective source of news. You know, I really was kind of like disheartened by the way the shade room covered the trial, because I know it is like run, or at least it was, you know, developed by a Black woman. And so to see the coverage, to see how biased it was, to see like the very low key Tory slant it had, it makes sense why people were shocked at the verdict. I was nervous, but like I was like, I'm pretty sure he's gonna be found guilty. Like I'm nervous because you never know. I mean, we live in a world where OJ was found not guilty. But if you were following like Megan kind of for like it was very clear that
it was very interesting to me that I've seen people be like, oh, there should be a mistrial. I'm like, based on what? Based on nothing. I was like, there's clear evidence. There are eyewitness evidence. There are people like that now, like even I did a community post, like, hey, we're going to have this discussion. Someone wrote in the comments, there's a video showing that Tory didn't shoot her. I'm like, there is no, like, see how you just lie.
Video.
People just say anything. And that I find to be the most frightening, that people are like, oh, someone said it, it's the truth. I'm like, no, it's not. We have a courtroom. We have testimony. We have a surgeon that says she got shot. And these are the same people, in my opinion, that I flip-flop now to be like, okay, she got shot, but it was somebody else, are the same people that refuse to believe she was shot in the first place. And I'm like, you're not credible, because your mind is already set in a certain way.
Right. It's all like little things that allow people, and that's why people end up being shocked by the verdict, because in their mind, a witness came on the stand and was like, Tory was just shooting everywhere. He was trying to break up a fight, etc. And so they're like, that has to be reasonable doubt. And it's like, that's actually not the testimony that happened. But blogs like the Shade Room and other blogs pick up videos like that. And so people who are already committed to believing this idea that Tory's innocent hear something like that, and then they run with it, right? Because
they latch on.
Because I was genuinely shocked. I was like, why do all these people think he was getting off? Like the way people were shocked.
People are very much a lot of people, which I'm just like, are we watching the same thing? And I'm like, oh, we're not. That's why. You're watching a blog or whatever, somebody who has no reporting skills, actual reporting skills, no legal degree, no anything to like actually relay this information. Yeah, we're not watching the same thing. This is why you're upset and confused. And you think this is a miscarriage of justice.
You're watching a lawyer who has very close ties to the Tory Lanez family.
It's interesting because there are not so many, there are a few lawyers on YouTube that have realized like, oh, I could just say whatever. And it's like, you cannot say whatever.
Part of going back to this idea about digital misinformation, part of the reason why it was able to flourish is because so few white media outlets covered the trial.
Yes.
All we had was blogs and gossip sites covering this trial, right? Like NBC would do like a 39-second YouTube video, like rapper Meg the Stallion and Tory, you know, some very basic run-of-the-mill, 1 minute or less, first day of the trial, and that was it, right? So have a dearth of information coming from reputable sources, white sources, I should say, complete silence by reputable Black sources. Like where was
Essence?
All the other
Essence was in comments of Shade Room being like, this is disgusting. I'm like, you are Essence. Like, y'all not gonna put nothing out?
I saw people were dragging, not wasn't a whole lot of people, but Essence put out a tweet when the verdict came out, and it was like a meme of Meg the Stallion, and it said, one thing about those tables, they're gonna turn. That's not news coverage.
No. That's
right. Like,
I also don't know who owns them anymore. Like, I know they have some, so maybe a white person owns them now. I don't know, but I'm like, what happened to Essence?
I mean, but like all of those other, you know, Black publications, right? Like, so white people aren't covering it. Black publications are like, reputable ones are Radio Silence. And then what you're left with is Black blogs, gossip sites, etc. In the hip hop community, right? Many of these Black blogs and websites are blogs and websites that heavily are concentrated on the hip hop community, where misogyny is rampant, all leaning a certain way. So all the information people have to get on this trial on a daily basis is DJ Academics, No Jumper, etc. Because you're not going to get it in NBC or CNN or ABC News, or you're not getting it from there. And like, the source is from an industry that is heavily misogynistic. Heavily. And that the Me Too movement escaped the Me Too movement.
Just ran wild.
Hip hop was like,
Russell Simmons literally ran and was like, jail, not me. Just ran off.
When I tell you, and so the hip hop community did not have to come to terms with like the treatment of women, really Black women, and the way that these other industries did. So it was like the perfect storm of like fuckery was going to ensue.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a great point.
So like that's the position that Meg Thee Stallion found herself in, is people covering this trial who are largely misogynistic. And if they're not overtly hostile, like academics, the other thing you get is if he did it, blessings to both sides. I don't know. We'll never know. We're going to have to see how, like, can I just talk about this for 2 seconds? Men are petrified of being excluded by other men. The fear of being
LeBron.
The fear of being excluded from the boys club, right, has so many men. And I'm going to specifically talk about Black men, not to say this happens to white men too, but I don't have a lot of
that's not the demographic.
Right. Talking about Black men, right? The number of Black men who I can listen, I'm reading between the lines, and what they're trying to say is they know Tory did it, but they'll never say it outright. Because the fear of being labeled as like this man who was gone against like the boys club of Misogynoir. Megan is never gonna get that support from the hip hop community.
Yeah.
That's the climate that Meg is in. And then Black women aren't really like vocally listening her. Like, I feel so bad for her. I do.
Same.
You're
right on time with what we're going to end with, because honestly, I think that to me has been the most disappointing of. I figured the Black women that have internalized, unfortunately, misogynoir, I figured they would be quiet. I was like, maybe they just choose silence. They're not going to support. Nope, that's not what happened. I was like, oh, you're going to actually advocate for this person. And these are comments all from women under that petition for Tory Lanez verdict to be overturned, which I'm like, baby, that's not how the legal system works, but okay.